Do you like Path of Exile 2? Do you like speculation? Do you like talking about character classes that have not yet been confirmed but are definitely in Path of Exile 2? Well, in today's video about Path of Exile 2, we are going to talk about the Templar, the Duelist, the Marauder, and the Shadow, and what they can look like in Path of Exile 2. But remember, this is all speculation, and nothing here is confirmed. It's all coming from this big head of mine. So if you'd like to watch it, make sure you hit the like button now and subscribe to Talkative Try for more wild, insane, speculative content about Path of Exile 2 and beyond. Now, let's get in today's video, beginning with the Templar. And you all know, being fans of Talkative Try, that I am not a mechanical mastermind, so we're going to talk about the vibes of the Templar today, what I expect we'll get when this class finally releases. And since you're not really locked to much beside the ascendancies in Path of Exile, I'm more so going to talk about the archetypes that are going to be introduced to the game itself with the Templar, meaning the skill gems that we are likely to receive. So we're going to break that down into three categories. We're going to go with Radiance or Angelic. Then we're going to go with Flails, because they've been attached to Flails the entire time. And then third, we're going to go with Buffer or Support. I know I listed them in one order, but we are going to go in a different order. I want to start with Flails. We're going to talk about that fantasy. I imagine that the Flails will be like the Witch King of Angmar in The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Massive weapons that you can use to just cause enemies to fly in every which direction. I know that there aren't going to be ragdolls in Path of Exile 2, but I imagine that's the type of aesthetic that they'll bring to the table. You're slamming into enemies, they're flying away, they're huge area of effect, they're dealing lots of radiant damage, because that's one of the facets that this is going to introduce into the game, and they are used to clear packs a lot of the time, and then maybe some other stuff is going to be built in for single target damage. Of course, as well, I think that they will mainly be melee-focused weapons, but perhaps there will be some skills that'll allow you to increase the range substantially. So you're not just whacking things that are straight in front of you like the Witch King of Angmar does, but you're actually causing the flail to extend its range all the way out to hit enemies a screen away. I know that grinding your games is avoiding the screen clear type of gameplay, but I really think that a Templar imbued with the power of some angel that's definitely not in Path of Exile 2 will be able to do so with a flail and their flail skills. I don't think there's anything that really exists in Path of Exile 1 now that exhibits that type of fantasy, and I'm excited to see it in PoE2. If it exists, remember, this is just speculation. And number two, we're going to go to the number one thing that I listed as the number two thing. I hope I'm not annoying anybody with this video. And that's Radiance or Angelic Presence. And these are more spell-focused skills. I'm thinking things like Righteous Fire in Path of Exile 2 or Divine Ire. Stuff that you use to channel, and you're blasting enemies with Radiance and Angelic Flame. Now, I know that's a very generic archetype to talk about, but I really think that's what we're going to get for one of the Templar's facets, essentially. Going to get a bunch of spells, they're going to be themed to be radiant damage and the like, and they're going to be pretty flashy and cool, just as they are in Path of Exile 1. We do know that Righteous Fire is going to make an appearance in Path of Exile 2, but what it looks like will probably not be similar to the radius around your character, running around, instantly killing stuff. So if you have an idea for what it's going to look like in PoE2, make sure you let me know in the comments below. I'm sure Pox is very, very excited to know that Righteous Fire will be in Path of Exile 2. And then finally, I think we're going to get a bunch of buffing-based skills that are attached to the Templar. When the Templar is dropped into the game, we're going to get a bunch of skill gems that are link-focused, maybe some cool auras, and some supports that have to do with buffing allies and maybe dispelling or inhibiting enemies a little bit. I think that's another archetype that the Templar or the Paladin or the Holy Cleric has attached to it. And I think that's what we're going to get with the Templar. It's very basic, not a lot to dive into there. That's the extent I'm going to go with it. Then I think we should briefly just talk about the ascendancies. I think that we're going to get an anti-paladin ascendancy, maybe a fallen Templar, maybe someone who's fallen to the thoughts of thaumaturgy, much like Dominus did in Path of Exile 1. Then I think we're going to get some Paladin or Holy Warrior archetype that is focused heavily on melee. Of course, they'll want people to use flails, but you'll be able to use any weapon that you want because ascendancies in Path of Exile 2 aren't attached back to weapons specifically. Then for the third ascendancy, I think that's a big wild card. I do think it will have to do with spells and perhaps buffing in some way. I've thought about the idea as creating your own angelic golem as being really cool, and how the Templar could be attached to a summon in that way. Instead of lots of summons like hordes, like the witch and her specific skills, they are able to create a holy golem that is a single being that is built up, 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 and up, just like what we have in the Guardian for Path of Exile 1, but of course on steroids, because Path of Exile 2 is all about wild customization, and we're pretty sure that that's how ascendancies are going to be as well. That's my version of the Templar. If you like it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Path of Exile 2 content, but we are not done just yet. We still have 3 classes to talk about, and there's going to be some wild speculation in this video. Let's keep digging on in. First, it's time for today's sponsor. The sponsor of today's video is Into the AM, an amazing graphic tee and sweatshirt and regular t-shirt company that has been providing me basically with my new wardrobe over the past 7 months. This company does a phenomenal job outlining a wide variety of different shirts that communicate a varied amount of aesthetics to the people who are interested in their shirts. I have a wide range of different shirts that I wear in terms of color palette, in terms of graphics on them. I have some plain tees now, and if you're not interested in t-shirts and you're in a cold environment, well, they also have sweaters, they have sweatpants, they have hoodies, they have a lot of stuff. Essentially, they have not just t-shirts, which is something that I learned rather recently, and I will be doing an upcoming sponsor segment on their sweatpants, so just you get ready for that. As I've talked about before, I am getting ready for Path of Exile 2's launch, and I need to make sure that I am not only in tip-top gaming condition, but that my cosmetics in real life are good to go. And with the help of Into the AM, I am completely set. And you can help support the channel by picking one of them up through my link below, or just visiting their site and using my code TALKATIVE at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Huge thanks to Into the AM for being a consistent sponsor for this channel and helping us grow as we trudge ever onwards to, what's the next milestone? 50,000 and then 100,000? Let's see if we can hit that before Path of Exile's early access ends, right, my fellow exiles? All right, let's get back to the video proper. And now we have the Duelist that we're going to talk about. The Duelist is going to be an interesting class in Path of Exile 2 and bring some awesome archetypes to the game that have been severely lacking, honestly, in Path of Exile 1 as well. It's bringing swords to the game, and that's basically the only confirmed thing. But within the sword archetype, there are a few different fantasies that can be unfolded. I'd also like to bring up the fact that briefly, during design, they almost changed the Duelist to being called the Gladiator, but they decided that the Duelist was a better name for it, and they kept it as the Duelist. So what archetypes could enter the game with the Duelist? Well, there's the classic Greatsword, right? Yeah, I think that's one that's definitely going to be in the game, and it's one that was showcased during the ExileCon 2023 trailer of the Duelist, him stabbing the ground and creating molten strikes, right? That's definitely the molten strike ability that we're seeing there. And there are lots of various skills that could be attached to that, such as Cyclone, right? Well, actually not, because Cyclone is an axe skill according to the skill designers from Path of Exile 2. I'm sure we'll get something similar for swords in Path of Exile 2, but we'll just have to see. Really, give me some ideas for greatsword-based skills below, because I'm quickly going to move to the other fantasy that the Duelist should undertake, and that is dual-wielding swords. This is a fantasy that has been missing from Path of Exile 1 for, well, a really, really long time, and I have always wanted to make a character work that's dual-wielding weapons. Finally, I was able to do so with Cleave of Rage because of how the gem works, but still, it's always encouraged to use a shield. Now, in Path of Exile 2, with active blocking actually happening with shields, we pick up your shield and actually block attacks like this, and block projectiles and big hits from enemies. I wonder if there's going to be something similar to this, where you're parrying or something with your dual-wielding swords. We haven't seen that in the game, but I did suggest it to Jonathan Rogers, so hopefully he takes that suggestion. And if he doesn't, just a bunch of various melee skills where you required to dual wield swords would probably be pretty sweet. I can see some flips going on, some double crosses happening, some double stabs. The skill designers are way smarter than I am. What I mainly want to be is pleased, satisfied from these skills being added into the game, and for them to inspire me with all these skills that are now attached to weapons. I am sure there was going to be a repertoire of skills that require you to use double swords. I'm really excited for that. And I'm sure there's also going to be some skills that ask you to use a sword and a shield. That's the other archetype that I think that the Duelist will focus on bringing into the game. And really, there's a lot of stuff that can already be said with that just transferred over from Path of Exile 1. Skills where you are using a shield to deal primary damage. The big question is, will they have a shield archetype in the game? I don't quite know. I don't really see that happening on launch, but given the fact that there is shape-shifting, there's going to be unarmed archetypes, I'm sure that they'll be able to conjure up some ideas. Yeah, I really just think the Duelist is going to be sword focused. If you can think of anything else that will be specific to the Duelist besides swords and parrying, let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. It doesn't inspire me as much as the Templar, but I'm still really excited to see what Grinding Gear Games has cooked up. Did you see me there? I don't think so, because I was using the Stealth of a Shadow, which is the next class that is basically confirmed to be in Path of Exile 2, and the class that we're going to be talking about right now. Once again, I think it's pretty basic what this Shadow is going to be bringing to the game, and it's not just one thing like the Duelist, it's three. It's dagger gameplay, it's trap/mine gameplay, and then it's something that I think that Path of Exile 1 never did too well, that Path of Exile could build upon, and that's stealth gameplay, okay? Let's focus on daggers first. Daggers, poison, close ranged attacks, some knife throws. I'm sure a lot of those skills are going to come into the game through that. Then there are traps, which are actually weapons in Path of Exile 2, but weapons are attached to skills now, or vice versa. Skills are attached to weapons. So we're going to get a bunch of trap skill gems assuredly, and mines are also rolled up into that archetype. So they are going to bring that fantasy into the game. It's not being left behind. Do not worry about it. The third thing that I think will require some ingenuity on the part of Grinding Gear Games is stealth. Yeah, stealth isn't really a thing in Path of Exile 1. Sure, there are some skills that give it, but it's not a great mechanic that really can be utilized on a variety of builds. In Path of Exile 2, though, they're going all out with this. They did it with the Witch, they're doing it with the Mercenary, they did it with the Druid. They're really looking at what brings a specific class fantasy to life, and they're doubling down on it. And I think stealth-based gameplay is what the Shadow should exhibit. So when they bring the Shadow to the forefront, I bet it's going to come with a few stealth-based mechanics or skills, allowing all the classes in Path of Exile to bring a bit of cloak and dagger into their skill arsenal. And then just like the Duelist, this one did have a temporary name change in which they were like, oh, maybe we'll go with the Assassin. Maybe that's a little bit more recognizable. And they decided to say, no, we're actually going to go with the Shadow for this one, keeping it the same between Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2. Ooh. 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 Okay, I don't know what that intro was, but you guys probably know what we're talking about by process of elimination, and that is the Marauder. Now, the Marauder in Path of Exile 2 is going to bring a bunch of skills into the game that revolve, I assume, around axes and rage, and perhaps totems? We'll just have to see. Let's focus on axes first. We haven't seen anything about axes except for in that Path of Exile 2 trailer where we saw someone throw an axe out, it spins around, and then it came back to us, a lot like Rage Vortex in Path of Exile 1, except it came back to us, so it's kind of like a Captain America shield or something like that. I'm a fan of that gameplay. I like axes. I like being able to throw them. I like being able to swing them. I'm sure the Grinding Gear Games devs have a bunch of awesome ideas with that there. And then there's probably going to be some rage-based mechanics or skills that come into the game. Maybe they transfer over something like a Rage Vortex in the Path of Exile 2. I think that would work rather well. And then we have seen that Ancestral Warrior Totem is available for mace skills, and it's attached kind of to the warrior. But I think we're going to get more totems with the Marauder, because the Marauder is bringing in that barbarian fantasy, whereas the warrior was more the, I am heavily armored, I'm going to walk into battle and fight. They're basically a fighter from D&D, right? The Marauder is more so the barbarian, or at least that's how it's been presented to us in the past. So I do expect lots of axe stuff, lots of rage stuff, some totem stuff, some connections to the Karui culture and the like, and that's the extent of it. I haven't speculated on the ascendancy classes for the Shadow or the Duelist, and I think I'm going to refrain from doing that with the Marauder as well. Maybe I'm talking about the Templar ascendancies for a specific reason. Maybe I've got a collaboration going with Dreamcore and perhaps Silver XYZ coming up in the very near future. That could be why. But really, the Marauder, I'm excited for them as well. Probably not as excited for them as the Templar and the Duelist, but they're going to bring a cool fantasy into the fold that doesn't yet exist in Path of Exile 2, and that is axe-wielding, raging barbarians, just constantly moving forward at a very quick pace. My fellow exiles, which classes are you most excited for that are coming in Path of Exile 2? They don't have to be the ones that we speculated about here today. They can be one of the announced 8 that will be in the early access, hopefully from the outset. I just want to hear which one is most piquing your interest. You all know that it's the Druid for me, and I cannot wait to play that. I hope it's available on the launch of Early Access, which, speaking of Early Access, if you'd like all things Path of Exile 2 related in the lead up to Early Access and beyond, make sure you hit the like button to spread this video to more people and to subscribe to the channel so you see all my future Path of Exile 2 content. I know this video was a bit unhinged, but I was feeling a bit unhinged today, and it is a very speculative topic. So I know only the most unhinged of exiles will be watching this video until the very end. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Alakura, my fellow exiles.